Check, check, check. Good evening to you. Welcome to Free. I'm Ryan. I'm the pastor and executive director here. This is Carrie. She is our associate executive director here at Free. Welcome to all of you in-house. Welcome to all of you joining us online. We're glad you're with us tonight, wherever you're joining us from, whatever state you're in, or even sober living house or treatment center, or maybe it's your own living room and you're by yourself. Well, you're not by yourself anymore because you have a whole community of people with you. We're glad you're here. This is a community for addicts, loved ones of addicts, and spiritual refugees. And what we do here is break the silence of addiction and create space for healing, recovery, and spiritual connection. And there's always one thing we don't do, Carrie.
That's true.
One thing we don't do. Y'all can shout it out on a count of three. 1, 2, 3.
We don't do shame.
We don't do shame. The front row got rowdy tonight. Carrie, do you want to tell them some things coming up?
Yes, hello. If tonight is your first night, we are glad that you're here. Just outside of these doors, would love to connect with you. You can get a welcome bag from either a staff member or one of our volunteers wearing the little badges that say, "I'm here to help." Inside those bags, you're going to find some fresh roasted wagon coffee, some free swag, and our Connect cards, a way to get onto our mailing list, get to know a little bit more about what we do, and stay connected for all of the events that we have here throughout the week, throughout the month, throughout the year. Stay connected. You'll know who our guest storyteller is, all the good things.
Yes.
Next up, this is, if any of you guys know that for the past 4 years, right? We've been doing the sober open mics.
Yep.
January, we're starting it back up. So this January 23rd, it's a Thursday night.
Every other month we do these.
Yes, that is correct. Doors open at 6 p.m., so come early, get your seat. At 7 o'clock, the performances begin, and these are all people who are in recovery. So some of these people are performing for the first time since getting sober, entering recovery. It's an amazing way. It's a lot of fun, great support. Come and hang out with your friends and support other performers in recovery.
And we've been doing this 4 years with the Phoenix. We co-host this with the Phoenix, and we're really grateful to our sponsors, the Hornbuckle Foundation and Colorado Artists in Recovery, who make these events possible. We're really grateful to them. Come hang out. It's going to be a good time.
I forgot that part.
You're
sorry.
all good. You're all good.
Teamwork. Next, we have coming up starting this Wednesday, I'm going to be co-hosting with Allison Harden from Beyond Betty. It's going to be in the cafe. We're going to go through a women's way through the 12 steps. If you guys don't know what this is, it's a women's approach to any 12-step recovery. So it's not just AA, NA. It includes Al-Anon, people who have never been through the steps, people who've been through the steps in other programs. It's a way to come together as women in community to kind of get a better understanding of how we can be in community with each other and apply the steps to all the areas of our life. This is the book. There's also a workbook that goes along with it. None of it is required. You can just show up and say, hey, I want some friends. I do encourage the book and the workbook. We encourage registration. There is no fee, though. It's just so we know who's coming. But it's a wonderful opportunity to get to know other women and just connect in recovery. So the first 2 weeks is a meet and greet, and then every week after that for 12 weeks is one step per week. And again, that's Wednesdays at, it's so good, 12 to 1. So come and hang out with us.
Unless you're a man. Don't come if you're a man.
I mean, I'm not going to kick you out,
Just that
but
would make it
we're
awkward.
it's like women's sensitive language. It's just a different approach, but we're not going to kick you out, but there'll be a lot of women.
Good, I'll be there. Just kidding, just kidding.
I don't know why you got to make it creepy, Ryan. I think you have the next
Yes, I have-
announcement.
Hey, I had my blueberry shake? Do I have?
You're good.
Am I good? Okay, I forgot to look in the mirror, and usually blueberries get stuck in my teeth. All right, y'all, I want to let you know about something. Carrie and I will be, we're putting this together right now. We are launching it tonight, so I'm speaking to you online people, a lot of you. We're doing a Faith in Recovery, a 2-day summit to explore a new way. This is going to be in April 25th and 26th, 2-day event. This is for church leaders, pastors, nonprofit leaders. Maybe you're on staff at a church and you are interested in the merging of faith and recovery. And the deal is, we get a lot of phone calls and emails from people all around the country saying, how do you do this? How did you start free? What are you guys doing? How do you do it? So we are putting together a 2-day event to address some of those questions, some of those topics. It's going to be a long weekend, because it's a Friday and Saturday, and then we have Saturday night here. So for any of you and online people across the country, if you know of leaders who have been asking these sorts of questions, this is for you. You can register on our website or our app if you go to the events page, and it's $179 to register. It's 2 days. We're going to feed you all some. It's going to be a good 2 days together. Anything you want to add to that, Carrie?
No, I think you covered it all.
Did I cover it all?
Yeah, and if you have any questions, you can always reach out to us. So if you're watching this online and you're like, I want to know if this is applicable to me, can I come? Email us, call us. We'll let you know.
Yeah, and we might have some Chicago folks watching tonight. You know, there's Free Chicago is launching this fall. We're working with them and leaders in Chicago. We meet with them once a month, and that's a very cool thing that's happening.
We get lots of different cities, so
Yeah.
fingers crossed, friends. Good things
Fingers
are
crossed.
happening.
Okay, thank you, Carrie. All right, y'all, the way we get started here on a Saturday night is with celebrations. We start with the good. We lift up the good. Maybe you are celebrating a sobriety anniversary or a birthday or the new thing happening in your life or your recovery, new babies, new jobs, new homes, new whatever it is. We celebrate it all here. A profound time, thing that we get to do together. God joins with us in the celebrations. We take 3 minutes for this. Krista has a mic on this side. Where's Joe? Joe has a mic on this side. Just raise up your hand. They'll get you a mic. If you're online, drop your comments in the your celebrations in the Facebook comments or the YouTube comments, whatever platform you're joining us from. Let's take 3 minutes. Seriously, we're going to be this quiet? All right, there, we got to take her. We got to take her.
I am visiting for the first time, and I brought a friend with me, and I have my sweet friend who God brought us together in a coffee shop a few months ago, and that was a wonderful event. So anyways, I'm just glad to be here and glad to learn about free community and love what you guys are doing.
Well, welcome. We're glad you're here. We'll celebrate that. Yeah.
Hi y'all, my name's Teray, and today literally today, I'm celebrating 10 months, and I cannot believe
Way
it.
to go, Teray. Happy 10 months, Teray.
Hi, I'm Sai. I just want to celebrate something in my life for those of us that struggle with mental health as well as addiction. I'm dual diagnosed. The ability to have chemical balance is amazing. And I struggled with that this last year. And winter is always really hard for me, and it's the first time in my life coming through the holidays I recognized a pattern of behavior happening, which is a signal to my mental health. And I asked for help, and I got a medication that is, I'm on a week, and the difference is night and day in my focus and energy and the way I feel.
Yeah.
And I've just had a fantastic week.
That's awesome, man.
So,
Thank you, Sai. Celebrating that, and thank you for your vulnerability to speak about mental health. We celebrate mental health.
My name is Mandy. I'm celebrating 4 years of sobriety.
All right, happy 4 years. Congratulations.
Hi, my name is Courtney, and on Thursday we celebrated my husband's birthday.
All right, happy birthday, buddy.
My name is Brenda, and I've been pretty sick lately, so it just occurred to me about 45 minutes ago that last Sunday was my 6 years. So,
Oh, well, happy 6 years, Brenda. Glad you're here.
I'm Colin. I agree on the emphasis of not forgetting mental health in this community, so that's fantastic. And this morning I found a men's Al-Anon group that's huge. And it made me so happy that exists. super grateful.
We'll celebrate Men's Al-Anon. Yeah.
On January 7th, my dad would have celebrated 46 years, but there was another guy that celebrated on January 7th. Happy 12th, Ryan.
Thank you.
12 years
yeah.
of recovery.
Thank you, Matthew. All right, you can steal my thunder. Thank you for the thank you, Joe. Oh, we got one more, Layla, and Tammy's going to join me up here.
So my name's Layla. I just wanted to celebrate free. This has been my home for a while,
Yeah.
and no matter how far away you get, like this is always a place where you can come and never be judged or shamed or just. I'm just thankful.
Yeah.
So thank you guys.
We're glad you're here, Layla. I'll take that from you.
I love when I see you walking.
Yeah, you are a shining light, Layla. Keep coming back. You belong here. Yeah. All right, shall we join our online people? Okay, you want the first one?
I would love it.
Okay.
RJ says, thankful my sweet daughter is attending your church now. She's awesome, and so are you.
All right, who's RJ's daughter? We don't have to call him out right now. Welcome, RJ's daughter. We'll celebrate that, RJ. Your sweet daughter's attending.
I'm glad I took it because that was all.
That was the only one of online. Maybe more will come in later. Okay, thank you, Tammy. All right, y'all, we are we're doing a 4-week series on the book, The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. Who's read The 4 Agreements? Oh, many of you. This is great. Okay, so we are in week 2 of this 4 weeks. Week 2, the second agreement is don't take anything personally.
Who do you aspire to be in the coming year? What values will define your path? Where will you stand firm in your recovery? And what vision do you hold for your life this year? This is your time to create the life you've always envisioned. Join us for the next 4 weeks, and let's walk together to shape your values, your vision, and your future.
So the second of the 4 agreements is don't take anything personally, which means that everything that happens around you, every comment made to you, good or bad, it's not about you. It has nothing to do with you, so don't take anything personally. How's that? Yeah, easier said than done, isn't it? Now, here's the other thing this means. It means that not every comment made to you or about you that you don't like, it doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It becomes a bad thing when we take it personally. So I was commissioned as an elder, as a pastor in the United Methodist Church in 2011. 2011, interesting year for me. It was when I was at like the unhealthiest point in my life, physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally. It was when I was at the very height of my addiction. And the way the process works to become a pastor in the United Methodist Church, well, you have to get your MDiv, your Master's of Divinity from seminary, did that. Then you go before an interview team, and you're working with them for some years, and you're writing lots of papers, doing a lot of interviews, answering a bunch of questions. Then you can be commissioned, and that's like a pastor in training. And then if you get passed off for commissioning, you're commissioned for 2 to 3 years. And then if you pass that, you can become fully ordained. They call it in full connection. So I was commissioned at annual conference in Pueblo, Colorado in 2011. Yeah, there's me in my robe because they require you to wear a robe at your commissioning. That was 2011. Yeah, it's always annual conference. It's required to go. It's for clergy and other church people. It's always in a different city, but it happened to be in Pueblo, Colorado. And each year at annual conference, there's hundreds of people at annual conference. And this was supposed to be like a good, joyous, happy day in my life, a big accomplishment. I had invited friends and family. And here's what I remember about that day. I was literally standing at the side of the stage, getting ready to go on stage to be commissioned. And a lady saw me from across the room, and she starts beelining towards me. Now, this lady, she knew me from a few years back. I was interning at a church where she was attending, and she beelines towards me, and I'm getting ready to walk on the stage, and she puts up her finger when she gets to me. She says, "Hey, probably no one has told you this, but I'm going to say it. You have put on a lot of weight And you need to get rid of it because it's not healthy. And if you want to do this work, you have got to remain healthy. To which I'm thinking a simple congratulations would have been just fine. That comment she made towards me, well, it hurt my feelings. Who does she think she is? I was deeply offended by her words to me. I took it personally. Well, the truth is, I knew deep down inside that she was right. I had become very unhealthy. Now, 3 years later, in 2014, I became fully ordained at annual conference. It happened to be in the city of Pueblo, Colorado, again. But in 2014, by this time, I was now a year and a half sober, and my life was looking pretty different. And isn't it interesting? Did her words to me somehow reflect, somehow inspire me to get sober? I don't know. I'll have to think about that one. So there I am. Yeah, that was the day I was fully ordained, standing there with Tammy, my wife, and our 2 little girls because the boys weren't born yet. And y'all, I'm not kidding you. When I was at the side of the stage, I see this same church lady who was there 3 years ago. And now it is my turn. So I go up to her, I beeline towards her, and I get there, and I put my hands on my hips. And the only thing I could think to say was, thank you for your words to me. 3 years ago. She looks at me and she gives me like the twice over. You know how people do that? And she says, oh my God, you look like a totally different person. I share that with you to remind you that not every comment that you don't like or that bothers you, it doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It's bad when we take it personally, but we talked about critique just a little bit last week, and I want to also remind you some critique, it actually has the potential to put you on a better path, but even then, don't take it personally. Now, when I was rereading this chapter in the book, Don't Take It Personally, the second agreement, I summed it up with this and see if it relates, see if you resonate. Practicing this agreement, don't take anything personally, well, it saves us from these 2 things. The first thing it saves us from, it saves us from the poison flowing through, and that poison loves to turn you into an obnoxious, judgy, control freak. Who's been there? Let's just get honest. The second thing it saves us from, it saves us from being chronically offended. And the problem with being chronically offended is if you stay there, you'll never move towards joy and gratitude. So, whenever you hear those words to you or about you, the ones that you don't like, well, here's the beautiful thing in your life. You actually get to choose what to do with those words. So that person who doesn't know you very well, and they say to you these absurd comments like, well, you're just not very smart. You're unwise. You're not competent. You know what your problem is? You're too lazy. You know what your problem is? You are too emotional. Whatever that thing is that they're saying, it is not about you. It has nothing to do with them. It has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with them. They've got stuff going on in here. But perhaps you take it personally because you begin to believe it. Why do you begin to believe it? Because it touches some core wound in your life. Ruiz says this in the book. He says, you take it personally because you agree with whatever was said. And as soon as you agree, the poison goes through you and you are trapped in the dream of hell. And by the way, if that poison enters you and that poison is flowing through you, what do you think is flowing out of you to other people? Yeah. I mean, this is the hard stuff. This is why we're talking about this one. That poison, when it enters in me and I allow it to flow, it has me judging everyone around me and trying to take the speck out of their eye. That poison, it has me saying things like, man, not only are they wrong, not only do they have a different perspective, but they're wrong and they're stupid too. Be careful with that poison. One of the things that I find tremendously helpful is, and we've talked about this one here before, Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. It's found in Matthew's Gospel, chapters 5, 6, and 7. You can read this thing in about 18 minutes, so you might want to read it tonight. It's words from Jesus. It's like the bread and butter of his teachings. I mean, this whole sermon, when you read it, you'll see that it's about compassion and generosity and non-anxiousness. It's about grace and nonviolence and a new way of living in the world. And by the time you get to the middle of it, chapter 6, Jesus is saying some really crazy things. He's saying things like, don't worry about your life. Jesus, how do we do that? No. Seriously, don't worry about your life. Don't worry about tomorrow. Live one day at a time. That's saying it comes from somewhere. Live one day at a time, because today has enough troubles. You don't need to be worrying about tomorrow. And he says, seriously, look up at the birds in the sky and look at the lilies in the field. And if God cares for them, how much more is God going to care for you? And Jesus is teaching us to commit ourselves to the care and trust of God. And by the way, Jesus was not into hypotheticals. This was very practical advice for a bigger perspective of your life. I mean, this sermon, the whole thing is about living with less anxiety and more peace, less worry and more calm. And who doesn't need that? Now, by the time you get to the end of it, in chapter 7, this really interesting thing happens. Jesus shifts from you to how the unhealed you, the you who takes everything personally, how that you treats other people. And he drops this line: do not judge, or you will be judged. Makes sense, doesn't it? I mean, yeah, when that poison, when it starts to flow through us and you're taking everything personally, well, then you turn into that obnoxious, judgy control freak. And what's it look like? You're going to grab the steering wheel of your life, that steering column. You're going to hold on tighter and tighter, and you're going to try to control everyone around you who you think needs your controlling, and you are now judging them. Meanwhile, your life is a complete disaster, but you're judging them, and it becomes a sick form of self-preservation. And is it true? We will judge everyone around us if we think it'll somehow save us. Jesus goes on to say this: why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank, the log in your own eye? How can you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your eye, when all the time there is a plank in your own eye? You hypocrite. First take the plank out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. This is Jesus using this big, over-the-top language to make a point. You see, when you live with all that anxiousness about what they said or what they did to you, and you think it's all about you, and you take it personally, well, then we try to control other people. Here, let me take the speck out of your eye. We try to control them as a way of avoiding our own issues, our own pain. And as long as you focus on judging them, then you don't have to do the difficult work with yourself. Now, what's this mean? Well, that means that cruel thing that they said to you. And maybe it goes all the way back to even when you were a child. When they looked you in the eye and they said things like, you're not valuable. Nobody wants you here. You don't have much to offer. In fact, you're a loser, and we'd be better off without you. Those words that has nothing to do with you, but it has everything to do with them and how you interpret it. What you do with those words, that actually has everything to do with you. And do you see how not taking it personally, because what I think Jesus is saying here is, don't focus on the flaws of others as a way of avoiding your own issues. And when you don't take it personally, do you see how it saves us from being the poison flowing through you? And that poison loves to turn you into an obnoxious, judgy control freak. But still, what do you say to the comments? I mean, how do you not take it personally? Try this. When they say that comment, say to yourself, isn't that interesting? I mean, what did they go through to make them respond with these kinds of words to me? Or do this one. My therapist gave me this one. Say this. Don't say it to them, say it to yourself. But say this. What happened to them? Do you see how that opens you up for a little bit of grace? What happened to them to make them say these kinds of things? And do you see, when we stop the poison from entering and we take nothing personally, it saves us from being chronically offended. And the problem with you being chronically offended is you'll never move to the place of joy and gratitude. And you all do know that we live in a society that encourages us to be offended. We are encouraged to be offended and divided. In fact, you can, if you are looking for ways to be offended, you can find them very easily. If you want to live this way, you can. You're going to be offended by the political left or the political right. If you want to, you can go home tonight and turn on the news, and I promise you in about 17 seconds, you can find something deeply offensive. If that doesn't work, just take out your phone and begin scrolling through Instagram. You will find something very quickly that is deeply offensive to you, and then your worst impulse takes over and says, you know what, not only is that offensive, I need to let them know how I'm feeling. This is my moral obligation in the world. And the problem, listen y'all, the problem is not with you being offended, it's when you are chronically offended, when you can't step out of that. There's a line in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I love this line. I know it's sometimes controversial. Acceptance is the answer to all my problems today, that when I'm disturbed or think of offended, it's because I find some person, place, thing, or situation unacceptable to me. It goes on to say, if I cannot find acceptance with it, I will not have serenity. And if you're thinking to yourself, well, wait a minute, Ryan. I mean, there's some things in this world that are just not acceptable. We got to stand up and we got to take action and we got to make this right. Well, I can tell you, you are not hearing acceptance the way it was written. If you are saying to yourself, well, wait a minute, when I respond on Instagram and I start typing, that is the way I'm being a change agent in the world and they need me. Really? They need you? If you struggle with being offended, if you struggle with being perpetually offended, chronically offended, try switching it out for acceptance and gentleness. In my experience, this will lead towards a life of joy and gratitude. In the first century, the Apostle Paul, he wrote a letter to this little church in Philippi, first century city. And the way Paul would do things, he would start a movement, then leave, and start another movement, then leave, and start another movement. And he would stay in touch with them through writing a letter. And what stands out always to me about this letter is Paul was writing it from behind the bars of a prison cell where he was unjustly accused. Do you think he felt offended? Do you think he was maybe disturbed? The people he's writing to in Philippi, they're living under this constant threat of the empire. It was constant fear of Caesar rolling into your town, and you never knew the demands Caesar was going to make of you and your family and your tax situation and your business. So there was this constant fear. Do you think they felt a little offended, maybe even disturbed? And what does Paul say to them while he's behind bars in chains? One line comes at the end of the letter. You can find this letter, Philippians, in the New Testament. It's 4 chapters. He says, rejoice. Rejoice in the Lord always. I will say it again. Rejoice. Let your gentleness be known to some people. No, to everyone. Now imagine you're in the first century city of Philippi and you are reading this letter from your founder and you're thinking to yourself, wait a minute, Paul, have you just totally lost it? You're telling us, I mean, do you remember how they treated you? Do you know where you are? Do you remember what they said to you and what they've said to us? And you think the answer is to be gentle? What does Paul say to do in the face of a disturbance? Rejoice. In fact, he uses this word joy 17 times in this very short letter. And it's the kind of joy that says, no matter the situation, no matter what's happened, no matter what they said or did, you cannot take or touch or steal the thing that is deeply rooted in here. For Paul, how do you maintain this kind of joy? How do you keep it? How do you arrive at acceptance? How do you combat all the disturbance? you let your gentleness be known to everyone. And this word gentleness in the Greek, because keep in mind the New Testament is written in Greek, it's a fascinating word. We'll throw it on the screen for you. It's this word epiikes. Say it with me, epiikes. Epiikes means gentleness, and it's loaded with all kinds of nuance, and I believe it is one of the greatest medicines we have for when we are disturbed or offended. In fact, epiikes is used 5 times in the New Testament, and it's translated in a number of different ways. In fact, in the King James Version, the KJV, it's moderation. Let your moderation be known to everyone. How nice would that have been in active addiction? Or the YLT, let your forbearance be known. The ESV, reasonableness, and the one I like the best is be on their side. Gentleness. Let them know you are on their side. It reads this way in the Message: celebrate God all day, every day. I mean, revel in him. Make it as clear as you can to all you meet that you are on their side, working with them and not against them. And do you see what's so fascinating about this? You're not taking it personally anymore because you've invited God in and now you have purpose. And your purpose, I promise you, is not to be chronically offended. The rest is just noise, and you don't have time for that. You're not taking it personally anymore because that person who made that strange, underhanded, hurtful comment to you, well, now you're curious about their wounds. What happened to them? Now you're interested in their story a little bit. Isn't that interesting? You're not against them, though. You're not taking it personally anymore because you realize that everyone has a story, and you don't always know what they're carrying. They might be carrying cake. If you know, you know. Now, y'all, here's what I love most about this. When life was the hardest, when he was literally in chains, he reaches out to people. He's doing an act of service to other people. I mean, think about it. He could have just suffered alone and in his silence. Instead, he reaches out to people, writes them a letter. It's almost like Paul intuitively knew that my well-being in the world is somehow connected to their well-being. In fact, it's why he starts his letter. If you read the first chapter, he starts with the words, I thank my God every time I remember you. I celebrated 12 years sober this week. On Tuesday. And every week, every year on this week, it has a way of bringing me into some gratitude, remembering my story, where I come from. And do you know, I was in chains. Like many of you, I was in chains. And I am no longer offended by those chains of my past. And I used to hate these chains. I wanted to act like they weren't there. These things made me cringe. I am no longer offended by the chains of addiction today. I actually have gratitude today. I'm a grateful alcoholic. I never thought that would happen. Gratitude. Like when I was at my lowest and at 6 o'clock in the morning, when I pick up the phone and I called Jerry, who is not an addict or alcoholic, and I said, Jerry, who's also a pastor, by the way, a dear friend of mine, and I said, Jerry, I cannot stop drinking, and this thing is taking everything from me, and dude, I need help. He says, well, I want you to call Tony. I didn't know Tony very well. I didn't know anything about this program called Alcoholics Anonymous. And Tony at 6:10 in the morning answered the phone. Tony and Terry met with me that night at a coffee shop, and they said to me, you don't ever have to drink again. There is a way out of this darkness. Gratitude. And when I decided that it was a good idea to pick up a drink again, well, man, these rooms of recovery. But before I got there, I just wanted to do it alone. And when Tammy came down the stairs on January 6th, January 7th of 2013, when she came down the stairs with tears in her eyes, holding an empty bottle of vodka, saying the words, what are we going to do? And man, I didn't want anyone to know. I was so embarrassed and so filled with shame. And why can't I beat this? And I'm going to call the counselor because I could just do it one-on-one, do my recovery one-on-one. And the counselor at 9 o'clock in the morning took my call. And I said, Sue, can we meet? I think I've got a problem with drinking. I cannot stop. And she says, Ryan, I would love to meet with you, but first you must be involved in some sort of support group with people who have been there and they know the way out. You have to walk with them, then I'll see you. And her words were so offensive to me. I was so angry with her. Thank God for good counselors. I have gratitude today for her and for the rooms of recovery. Man, when I could not make sense of this disease, when I was so baffled that, man, I was the good kid in high school and I was a leader in a church youth group, and at 18, my brother was killed of this disease. He was 22, and then I picked up right where he left off. I could not figure it out. I was so angry at God. And I read so many books about addiction, so many books about God, and I am so confused. And in the rooms of recovery, they kept telling me, just keep coming back. And they would tell me things. They always pointed me to the God who would do for me what I could never do for myself. And for my sponsor, Sergeant Major, for the last 6 years, talk about gratitude. When my mind is swirling and I call Sergeant Major and we either talk on the phone or we meet for coffee, and he says to me, he asks me the most annoying questions. He'll say things like, preacher, because he calls me preacher. Tom, if you're watching tonight, is it true? He'll say, preacher, where's God in all this? God, that's so annoying. And yet I need it. He'll say to me, when my mind gets really tripped up and I got a resentment going towards someone else, preacher, we're going to have to 552 his ass. And if you don't know what that is, page 552 in the big book, it's a prayer for all of us, because our instinct says, get revenge. Pray for their demise if they've hurt you. And that prayer says we're going to do the exact opposite. We're going to pray for all the things we want for us. We're going to pray it for them. And my sponsor said this is going to be the way to your freedom. And today I have a lot of gratitude. That prayer has saved me. And for everyone in the rooms of recovery today that I get to journey with, that I get to walk with, they're the ones who are still reminding me, the reminder that I always need, that God could and would if he were sought. For my wife, Tammy, talk about gratitude. She stood by me in the very darkest days of my life, and she still stands by me today, and things are different today. We get to do life together today. We get to do this thing together. We get to do coffee together today, and still in our bedroom above the light switch hangs the scripture, let your gentleness be known to everyone, because I have to remember how to treat her, and sometimes I fail in it. And I have to remember how to treat other people out there, and sometimes we get it wrong, don't we? Gratitude. And for my kids, on Tuesday morning, I woke up and I went downstairs to get my coffee. And Tammy had a card for the kids to write in, and they all, even my little 5-year-old boy, they wrote in this card, and they said, happy 12 years. And then they said things like, I'm so glad you're my poppy. And it filled me with this gratitude because they didn't have to know the old me. And I don't hate the old me anymore. I love the old me. I had to have the old me to have the new me. But I get to be Poppy today, be fully present in their lives. And that is a big deal. You see, if I'm living in a way where I am perpetually offended, well, then I'll never arrive to the place of joy and gratitude. And today I really like joy. I don't want to lose that stuff. So here's what we're going to do. I want to play a song for you, or shall I say with you. This song, anyone heard of Michael Jackson? Yeah, never heard of him. You were on a different planet. Okay, Michael Jackson, he wrote a beautiful song called Will You Be There? But Boyce Avenue came along, and it came on my Pandora station this week while I was at the gym. This always happens to me. And they did a cover of this song, and I thought, that is really beautiful. And I compared the two. I actually like this one better. Don't tell Michael Jackson. This song is really beautiful. I want you to take a moment and reflect, who are the ones who have stood by you in your life? They've been there for you. The ones who have constantly pointed you towards the good. What things do you need to let go of? How can you remember them and stay on the good path? Take a moment and reflect. by raise of hands, who couldn't help but think of the movie Free Willy when that song came on? One of my favorite films. Remember when the whale was jumping over the thing and it was one of the greatest thematic moments in history? Yes, I remember it too. All right, y'all. We are Elizabeth, the chair of our board. You know what she said to me? She leaned over and she said, "Your music at the gym is really slow." I said, "Sometimes it is, not always, but sometimes I get little gems like that." Okay, y'all, if you're new with us this evening, you should know that every single Saturday night since the very beginning, we've had a guest storyteller in the house. I can't wait for y'all to meet my friend Terry Lawrence. Terry was here with his son a few months back. I think it was in the summer. Here's what I remember about that is he was telling me about this show Intervention on A&E, and I'm like, oh yeah, I used to watch Intervention all the time. I loved to watch it when I was drunk because it made me feel better about everyone else, because what I would do is judge them as a way to make myself feel better and avoid all my own pain, and I could look at them and say, what a mess they are, and then me drinking vodka on the couch, this is not a big deal. Now, Terry was on an episode of Intervention back in 2012, I believe. He'll tell a little more about that. But I asked Terry if he would be willing to come and share some of this story with us tonight. They always give experience, strength, and hope around the topic. And Terry's he's the man for this. So Terry, help me welcome my friend Terry Lawrence in the living room. So the other thing I didn't say about Terry is we have similar sobriety dates. You got sober in 2013, just like me.
Yep.
And,
April.
April. So God willing, in April, you'll be celebrating 12 years.
Amen.
Tammy and I went home that night when you were here on a Saturday, and we looked up that episode. Do you remember the episode number?
I'm going to guess 13 for some reason, but I can't remember.
Well, if I find it, if y'all are interested, I'll send it to you. A fascinating show, fascinating story. And let's start here because your life was turned into a disaster like we do in active addiction. At the bottom of your addiction, you got tied in with some organized crime.
Yeah.
And you were asked to do things that no human being should be asked to do.
Yeah.
Where did this lead you?
Wow. Well, that was back in 91, right in that time frame. I had been sober for a number of years here in Denver and through AA, had built a successful business. During that time of recovery, I started selling various food. I used to own a chain of bakeries here in Denver. It was very successful. And a lot of my customers were restaurants and hotels. And some of them were some people that I knew later on after I relapsed after 5 years. And I started sliding back down in my relapse. I discovered cocaine. And as a result of the relationships in the relapse, I became very good friends with a group of people that were in organized crime. And they asked me to, at a point when they knew I was at my bottom in my addiction, and I had nowhere to go because I had lost everything, then they approached me with an offer to take care of some business for them. And because they knew I had a prior military background in special forces, and I had a background in other activity in my childhood where I knew a lot about different things like weapons, guns, etc. They made me an offer to take care of a business problem by killing some of their business partners. And I wasn't going to do that because I knew deep down inside that isn't who I was. As lost as I was in my addiction, that was a line that I really believe God would not allow me to go over. And to tell that correctly, I have to go back to my childhood. You know, I was raised in an alcoholic home full of violence, and I was raised as a ward of the state because of that. I was in and out of boarding schools, foster homes, orphanages all my young life. I was physically, sexually, and emotionally abused repetitively over many years of my young life. I escaped all that by joining the military by the grace of God. But I had gone to a Nicky cruise in David Wilkerson crusade at the age of about 16, just before I surrendered myself to the military, because I had a choice to go to the military or go to prison. I picked the Army, and they sent me off to train for Vietnam. But anyways, at the David Wilkerson crusade, I dedicated my life to God.
Yeah.
I knew he had me, and I would never be able to walk away from that. As much as my life journey in recovery has led me up and down and all over the place in recovery through a numerous series of sobriety periods, successful business ventures, and losing it all again through relapse.
Yeah.
God had his hand on me. So as a result of that criminal episode, I was asked to relocate someplace that I didn't know anybody. So I said, okay, and I shipped off to Western Colorado.
So you didn't go to prison. They just said, you've got to leave here.
Correct. Right. Well, I ended up testifying against people. And as a result, I had a contract in my life. I had to leave.
Yeah.
So it was that, or also to avoid prison. So they sent me to a drug treatment center as a condition and long-term probation supervised by federal parole officers. But they didn't send me to prison. They let me start rebuilding my life. That became a period of 18 years of sobriety in Western Colorado.
So you had 18 years of sobriety in Western Colorado. You built the largest real estate company, home development company.
Yep.
Things were going good.
They were going great. I had a worldwide ministry. I was involved in doing ministry work all over the world. Had a new family, all my children with me. It was a wonderful life in sobriety.
So then some of y'all might remember what happened in 2008. Things started to crash. The market crashed.
Yes.
So you were on top of the world. Market crashes. You lose everything. What happened?
Yeah. Well, it triggered me emotionally because of prior life experiences with rejection, abandonment, issues that I never fully healed in. All of a sudden in my business world and my personal life, I was surrounded by people that were abandoning, leaving me, starting with banks, business partners, family members, employees, close friends, associates, all over the community. Everything in my life changed within weeks because the business came to almost a standstill. And we were building 250 homes a year. And we went from 60 employees to 5 employees. So again, all the losses equated to something emotionally and spiritually I couldn't deal with. I wasn't equipped to deal with them. And as the big book talks about, there comes a time, if we're not careful in our recovery, when we're defenseless against that first drink. That day happened.
Yeah. So you picked up.
I picked up a drink, and within weeks, I was back to cocaine. And I began a period of a 3-year relapse, which led me up to the time frame when A&E stepped in and offered to do a story because it was so public, my rise and fall. They wanted to do a story about it to help other people in recovery.
So I think it was in 2013 you were indicted.
Yep.
Spent some time in prison.
Yes. I got caught up in the biggest drug case in Western Colorado history. I, again, by the grace of God, escaped prison. I was offered a 5-year community correction sentence, which I did 2.5 years of. And in that time, I had my Job moments where literally God allowed me to have everything taken away that I built up over that period of recovery and relapse and stripped it all away till there was nothing left except the great how that I had to pick up the tools to learn what honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness to go to any lengths to allow myself to begin the recovery journey again from inside the jail.
So I know a lot of people will say, well, yeah, of course you found God in jail. but it's lasted for you.
Amen.
You came out different. Things have been different. So
Yes.
what started in jail for you almost 12 years ago,
Right.
what's the last 12 years look like?
Well, it's been a journey of learning those lessons learned over and over again. For some of us, we have to learn them over. We're stubborn,
Yeah.
you know, or there are levels of healing that we continuously have to keep working on. And for me, that was the case. So in those lessons learned, I had to get to a point of complete surrender of everything I thought I knew about addiction, recovery, God, everything. And for years, I had practiced it as well in my own life. And I totally surrendered to the fact that nothing was going to change unless God showed me how to change. So I began applying some of those biblical principles of change in my own life, starting with accepting personal responsibility for the choices I made in my life and accepting the responsibility to pick up the tools that the AA program laid at my feet and begin working the steps to the best of my human ability with God's help.
And what was it like to rebuild? I know you're kind of, you've spent some years rebuilding.
Yes.
You're doing some very interesting things. One of the things you told me when we were meeting in my office was, you said, I have a broken heart for the brokenhearted, which leads you to help people all over the world.
Right.
What are you doing?
I had to be broken. I had to be smashed to the point where there was nothing left of my pride, my ego, to the point where I allowed God to replace all that with what I believed He truly had created in me. So I had to be a seeker and pursuer of who God is to learn true humility. And I would say one of the greatest lessons to be able to surrender to what God's plan for recovery is learning the lesson of humility. And you talked about that well tonight, quite a bit, in the lesson you presented tonight. But in that humility, it became more about other people and God. And in that place, I have a broken heart for the brokenhearted because that's what God did in me. He broke down all the self so that all that's left is a love and a compassion for the hurting and wounded that I recognize so well in other people. Yeah. And I have a sincere, honest desire to share with them what through God's grace and love He gave me.
Yeah. And you actually go into the prisons in Mexico with the Sinaloa.
Yeah. I go into the Sinaloan State Prison. I built a church in the prison, and we're working on a second church project now, by the way.
Yeah.
I'll show you the video. I just got it today from these guys that are growing their own gardens, supporting themselves and their families in the prison through what God's doing with these Christians in that prison. So I'm excited about going there. I've been invited. I've been working on a bunch of churches in the Philippines, and I have a life recovery group that I lead, a faith-based 12-step group back at Grand Junction in my business office.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping to start an all-recovery faith-based organization like you have here back in Western Colorado.
Yeah, we're going to talk, by the way. Oh, yeah. And somewhere in all this, you're writing a book, right? What's the title of the book you're writing?
The title of the book I've been working on since I sat in jail and he gave me the idea, and I diligently started it this last year. It's called Life Recovery, Lessons Learned in Life Recovery. And it's about the lessons I've learned in life recovery. And there's about 9 or 10 of them that are solid lessons, of which we talked about a few of them tonight, but there's several more. And how did I learn them? How did they apply? And what are the fruits and the benefits of those lessons learned in the transformation, restoration process that God has for each one of us in recovery?
Yeah. Well, Terry, in closing, I know sometimes we get into recovery and we think the hard stuff, the losses, well, they're not going to happen because now we're on the straight and narrow. And then we find out, no, we actually experienced loss, even in recovery. Mm-hmm. We know how you dealt with losses in the past, you picked up.
Yep.
How do you deal with losses today?
I don't take it personal.
Yeah.
So the greatest lesson you talked about is what I had to learn, you know, that you were sharing about tonight. I have had, and I am tested in this all the time. Ask my wife, Claudia. I have difficulties with employees, business associates, bankers, contractors. I deal with them all day long. And the greatest thing is not to be offended,
Yeah.
you know, that I have to deal with in recovery today. And how not to take it personal is by realizing there truly is a God who takes it and has taken it for me.
Yeah.
It's not about me anymore.
Yeah.
It's about him because I surrendered.
Yeah.
When I get to that point, I can let go and I can keep on going and I can grow in Christ. Until then, it's painful.
Yeah, until then it's painful. That's a good word, man. Are you going to stick around a few minutes if people want to chat?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, y'all, let's hear it for Terry Lawrence. Thank you for being with us tonight. Thanks, brother.
That was good.
Good stuff, man. I'll take that from you. Yes. Season 12. Which episode? 16. Season 12, episode 16. If you want to see Terry on the show, A&E, intervention. All right, y'all, check it out. Matt and Renee, do you want to pass around some mics?
You want me to rap?
Can you rap? If you could sing Michael Jackson, sing that song later, maybe. Pray about it. All right, y'all, the way we close here on a Saturday night is, well, we start with celebrations. We lift up the good, but we close in a similar way, but we call them heartaches because what we know is throughout the week, maybe you've been carrying some heartaches, some burdens, and you've tried to carry them alone, and you find out you suck at carrying them alone, and you find out you don't have to. It's why you have community. It's why we have a God who hears the cries of the people. So if you need some prayer, some encouragement, some lifting up, I encourage you to put words to the burden. If you're online, you can put the heartache in the YouTube comments or Facebook comments. We'll join with you there. Matt has a mic. Renee has a mic. You can just lift up your hands, and we'll take 3 minutes for this.
Hi, I'm Alexia. I'm an addict in recovery. I ask you please to pray for my mom. We lost my grandma and her mom last Sunday. My mom is an alcoholic, and she's going through a very, very difficult time right now with dealing with loss and addiction and, unfortunately, denial. So please pray for her.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Prayers for your mom and your family and you. Thank you for sharing.
If we could pray for a friend of mine, Jimmy. He was helping us move this week and took him to the hospital yesterday. Ended up with 2 hernias. So he's in quite a bit of pain. So if we could just lift him up in prayer.
Yeah. All right, prayers for them. Thank you for sharing with us.
If we could please pray for my family. I'm from California, and they're all about to be evacuated and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning them. We lifted them up last service as well. For those of you that don't know, LA is experiencing significant tragic fires, many lives lost, many structures burned to the ground. And so prayers for all the people in LA. Yeah.
Hi, this is Ron, and this prayer is actually for Ryan and Tammy and Free. I so appreciate this organization and what they're doing, and I just am so blessed to be a part of this, and I would like to congratulate Ryan for this 12 years. You wear it well, brother. Love you.
Thank you, Ron. It means a lot to me. Thank you. Yeah, I wasn't one of your heartaches. That's a good thing. You said Ryan and Tammy. I thought, oh, what do we do? Thank you, Ron.
Teray, again, I just wanted to also just send some light to the folks in LA that are experiencing the fires. Also to my best friend I haven't heard from who lives in that area. Yeah, and just anyone who has found their way back out or doing however they're coping. Just praying for that.
Yeah, thank you, Teray. Lifting them up. Prayers for your best friend.
I'd like to pray for my friend Taylor. You can also call her T-Baby. She's in rehab right now, but she has a long way to go. So if y'all could give a prayer for her, I appreciate that.
All right, we're lifting up T-Baby tonight.
Prayers for T-Baby.
I am asking for prayers for my family. My sister-in-law passed away on Wednesday morning, and I just found out a cousin of mine is in the hospital for an explosion. So he's burned all over his body and his face. So asking for prayers. Thank you.
Yeah, many prayers coming your way. All right, Matthew, you want to join me up here, dude?
She's out of my life, and I don't know whether to laugh or cry.
That's my Michael Jackson.
Are you maybe sober open mic night in a couple weeks?
Maybe not.
Okay, maybe not. Yeah, how about we just join with our online community? Why don't you take the first one?
Christy, our old friend Christy. Prayers for peace and guidance for Jennifer as she is going through a lot of life changes with work. Prayers to Jennifer and prayers to you, Christy.
Yeah, good to see you, Christy. Glad you're joining us. Oh, the other Christy says, prayers for all those on the West Coast with the fires and the East Coast and the South with freezing weather. Yeah, well, we just got to lift up the entire country tonight. So prayers for everyone, and especially in LA. And thank you, Christy, for joining us tonight. Thank you, Matthew, for joining me up here. And listen, y'all, if you have been impacted by the mission of breaking the silence of addiction and creating space for healing, recovery, and spiritual connection, well, you should know that we do, here at Free, we do rely upon your generous giving. I know many people, many of you are part of that. You've made it a sacrificial practice in your life. You've made it a spiritual practice in your life. And I like to say every week, I like you to know how grateful we are. It makes a difference. Thank you for being a part of that. If you would like to give, if you want to donate to Free, there's a few different ways you can do it. You can download the app, Free Recovery Community. All of our content's on that app. Messages, guest storytellers are on the app. There's a giving button, and you can give one time, or you can set it up to give weekly or monthly, however you want to do it, whatever amount. We're grateful for all of it. You can do the same thing on the website, freerecoverycommunity.com. And there are the giving kiosks, just one outside this door for you cash and check type people, one outside these doors if that's for you. And if you want to use a credit card, but you don't want to do the thing online, well, you don't have to. We've got you covered, because there's the dip jar that hangs out on the black table just outside these doors, and it's I'm going to tell you how it works. It's about the size of a shoebox, and you just take a credit card, and you dip it in, you dip it out, it lights up, you get to feel good about it. It's set at $20, so you can't give more or less than $20. You can dip more than one time if you would like. You can dip more than one card if you would like. We're grateful for all of you dippers. Thank you for being a part of that. Seriously, it makes a huge difference here at Free. Shall we go out with a prayer? Yeah, let's. I would encourage you to just open up the hands. Just a simple sign of openness. And I don't know, maybe tonight you're open to a new way. A brand new way of living. You're not going to take it personal. Yeah, those comments you're going to say, isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? What happened to them? Maybe you need peace. You need the anxiety to start lessening. Yeah, what do you need to let go of? So just take a big, deep inhale. Yeah, and you can let that breath out. And if you don't know the Serenity Prayer, well, it's on your screen. We'll pray it together, and it goes like this. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. Grace and peace to you. See you next time.